people ask me now, it's like, how is it different between my time in the big leagues? And I obviously didn't play in the 80s. And now, as far as from a hitter's perspective, I look at the athlete today. I look at the hitter today. I think Julio across the board on average, I think they're superior athletes. I think they're built and they train from a young age where the majority of guys in my generation, we didn't train until we got to the big leagues, and then training kind of became a thing. These guys are starting at 16 years old. So I look at the size of the player today and just the athleticism they possess. I think it's definitely a superior thing. But when it comes to hitting, um, and there's still great hitters in the game. To see what Soto's doing right now, and Aaron Judge and Ohtani and Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, and there's a lot of great players around this game and great hitters. But I think on average across the board, you're seeing a lot of guys hitting sub 200. The strikeouts are way up. And I think, and I'd like to hear your perspective, the angles, the way they train, it's to hit the ball over the fence and control the strike zone. Well, I think controlling the strike zone is a great thing. But I think hitting the ball over the fence as your first thought is definitely incorrect. And my process, and through my career, I changed, I evolved, I learned as a hitter. I started to reach out and talk to great hitters and pick their brains and to develop my own philosophy. And it was basically, in the end, get a good pitch to hit and knock the crap out of it. And that was not what are my angles. I don't care how hard it comes off the bat. I know if it hits the seats and is ricocheting, that's good exit velocity. That was our monitor for what good exit velocity is. But I see today there's so much technique and worry about angles and launch angles and this and that. We're getting away from the basics. We just need to get a good pitch. And the best hitters still hit that ball line to line. The great hitters, you can't put a shift on because they're unpredictable. Your thoughts?
You hit it right in the nail. The process of becoming a good hitter, as each individual has to find themselves. And thinking about launch angle and exit velocity, and everyone trying to do the same thing, is like trying to cookie cutter everybody. You have to learn how to hit the ball hard. You have to learn how to see the ball, control the strike zone, and you have to learn what type of hitter you are into you and develop that. You have to develop the type of hitter, not what they saying, what you can't do. Not everyone can hit the ball out of the ballpark. And if you're going to hit 200, and if you're going to strike out 200 times because you're trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark all the time, I don't see any good results on that. I believe that every hitter is different. No matter where you put the bat, no matter how you hit the ball, as long as you can put the bat on the ball consistent through the strike zone and hit the ball hard on the line drive, you become a good hitter with time. With time. It's not going to be over time. The pitchers back nowadays, they throw hard, but they're not locating. When we play the game, those guys throw average 90 to 95, but they got great location. The problem is now with the launch angle that everybody wants to throw hard and you want to swing hard regardless of situation, regardless of who is on base, regardless of hitting count. What is my best hitting count? Like, personally, I never swing at the first pitch. I think the best pitch for me to hit was the 1-1 pitch. If you miss and you put me 2 balls and 1 strike, now I got you. That was my thing. But nowadays, if you swing at the pitch at 3-1 and you miss the pitch, I'm going to ask you, what was your thought? What was your thought process? ball's outside, you try to hit the ball out of the ballpark, why did you swing it? And that's the thing. Guys swinging 200 nowadays, they're not short and quick, and they're all doing the same thing. They're striking out too many times. They're not driving in runs like we used to. They're not hitting for high average like we used to. So I don't know why launch angle next to velocity. I don't know, Booney.
My thought is this. Because you're right. Our generation, well, baseball until recently, for 100 years, you were kind of judged on three categories. Especially if you were a guy that was going to be a middle of the lineup, run producer, you were pretty much judged on what was your average, how many homers did you hit, and most importantly, how many runs did you drive in.
Mm-hmm.
That was what we were paid based upon. Uh, and the fact that that has changed, they really talk about OPS. The scary thing for me is this, and you mentioned it earlier. Everybody's not born to hit the ball over the wall. And I don't care how big and how strong you are, it's technique. It's like in the PGA Tour, the guy that's the biggest and the strongest doesn't necessarily hit his tee ball the farthest. It's about it has a lot to do with technique, and I think a lot of it is you're born with it or you're not born with it. So my point is everybody's not a home run hitter. And if you make the criteria of how you get paid is hitting the ball over the wall and reaching base, I think that's a dangerous precedent because everybody can't do that and everybody isn't born to walk. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., one of the great players of my generation. I don't care what you do to him and how much you talk to him about getting a good pitch to hit. He was not going to walk a lot, and maybe some years he'd walk. Maybe some years he'd walk 40 times, but maybe some years he'd walk 20. He could probably improve on it, but that's not what made him great. What made him great is he was so unique. He could hit pitches all over the place, and he's a Hall of Famer, by the way. So I just think to pigeonhole people and say, okay, you're a little guy, but you're a really good hitter, but we need you to hit the home runs. Well, that's going to ruin that guy. It's going to ruin him because he's going to try to hit the ball out of the wall, over the wall, and that's not his skill set. And I that's the only problem I have. I have no problem with the changes in the game. The game's evolving. I get it. But it's a scary thing when you start setting the precedent of hit home runs first and be a good hitter second. I think being a good hitter, learning how to be a good hitter will result eventually in home runs, and home runs being whatever your skill set decides that is. Some guys it's going to be 50. You're watching Ohtani, you're watching Aaron Judge. Those guys are real special players. And some guys that ceiling for hitting home runs might be 15, but it doesn't mean they can't be a big contributor and a big part of an offense.
You're right about that, and that's why the game is shifted the other way because they're not teaching now to become a good hitter. If you go to the minor leagues, they don't want you to hit ground balls. They don't want you to hit line drive. They want you to hit the ball. They don't care if you strike out. Hit the ball in the air. Well, how? Okay. You can't teach everyone to hit the ball in the air, especially like you said, little guys. Little guys don't have the ability. They don't have the bat speed. Maybe he hit 15, 20 home runs, but they're gonna hit 220 and strike out 100 times, trying to do something that they can accomplish as a human being. Bunny, I always say this, and I might be wrong, but I'm gonna stick with that. I know that baseball has changed, for better or worse, but the way the human body moves hasn't changed, and it never will. You have to do sort of movement with your hips, arm, your head. Synchronize those movements so you can hit the ball hard. And that is if you come with that ability to hit the ball out of the ballpark. Not too many of us can do it. I can do it. I can do it. But I can hit the ball the other way very hard. Manny can hit the ball everywhere, but Manny was a great hitter. But you don't see the Manny Ramirez nowadays. And Manny wasn't a big guy, you know. George Brett wasn't a big guy. But those guys, they know how to hit. Robin Young, he knows that he's a skinny guy, but he knows how to hit. They teach those guys how to become a good hitter. What Ted Williams said. If you ask Ted Williams, he says, you got to get a good ball to hit. That was outstanding. I think that was one of the greatest remarks of baseball. Every great hitter got to get a good ball to hit. Now they swing way too hard. Too many teachers in the game that don't know what they're talking about. Too many guys in YouTube screwing kids' mind. I mean, it's crazy.
That is a big difference, and in all facets of life is the technology, the ability to go on a YouTube and get instruction from somebody, like you said, has no clue what they're talking about, has no real credentials, but package it well. The fact that we get to talk right now is a result of technology. I see that as being a real positive thing.
Exactly.
But you're right. There's downfalls to it as well, and it's taken too serious at a young age. I don't want to sit here and just bash everything about it. No, it's still the great game of baseball, and I love it, and it's been a part of my life, my whole life. Yeah, there are some things that I really look at in today's game and go, man, that's really cool. I wish I would have had that when I played. And there's some other things that I kind of like the way we did it. And you're right. It's every generation. The guys playing today, it's not Julio Franco's game anymore. It's not Bret Boone's game. We had our day when it was our game, our clubhouse. It's their clubhouse now. And one day, it's not going to be their clubhouse. They're going to be sitting here on our side of the fence looking at the next generation and probably being critical of it, going, no, you got to do it this way. That's what baseball is. I remember talking to my grandpa all the time. And he would get on our generation, and I'd say, Gramps, these players are pretty good. He wanted to talk about his generation. I think that's just the natural thing as we progress through life. But each generation will be judged in and of itself. But yeah, it's just interesting on the hitting side. I wanted to talk to you about that and your thoughts, because I just see it, and it's too, one of the great hitters, Edgar Martinez, and a teammate and a good friend of mine that helped me a lot. We talk about this all the time. Approach, thought process, more than anything is the thought process. You talk about situational hitting. I sometimes turn on a game and I watch the runner on third, less than 2 out, is the biggest thing that stands out to me. And I see the lack, the failure to get it done on a consistent basis. And it drives me crazy, because I sit there and I go, what is the thought process here? You don't have to get a hit. You definitely don't have to get an extra base hit. And the last thing you need is a home run in this situation. You need to touch the baseball, put it in play to get that run across the plate. Now, in a perfect world, I hit a home run, but it's just as good as getting a hit, and I'll take a sac fly every time. And sometimes in that situation, you need a six hop ground ball to the shortstop, can of corn, where you're out, because your job is to get that runner home. And I'm not saying I was perfect. I failed a lot. But I see consistently just the approach isn't there. What are we trying to do in this at bat? What are we trying to do? I hear it from guys all over. There's not a thought process, and that's not with everybody. The elite players, the players that get it done, they do have that thought process. But I'm just talking about across the board on a statistical. I just don't see it there. I don't see the grinding. Whatever I got to do, I'm in battle mode. I got to get this run home.
Well, Boone, you're right, and it drives all of us crazy. But you have to understand, they don't teach those things anymore. The fundamental of the game, they don't teach those things anymore. Spin training goes spin training. They don't teach fundamentals. If they don't teach it, it's not going to happen. Without practice, nothing can be achieved. And since they're in the minor leagues, They don't teach those guys fundamentals, thought process, what did I do in the situation, how I prepare myself, you know, from on this circles. If these guys don't do it, if you get this guy over, hey, I'm gonna get this guy over, you get him in. That thought process is not teach anymore. It's not happening anymore. It's just one thing in mind, and they just hit home runs. And that's why you see those things that, like you said, infield back less than 2 hours, 4 hops to the shortstop, do the job. They rather strike out, and that's why it drives me crazy. I don't watch baseball game. I really don't, because I don't see the thought process on the athletes that the game situation needs to have. And a certain situation, it's like you said, the elite athletes, some of them do it, but I don't see, especially the back of the lineup, the guys that, the seventh, eighth, and ninth guy, they got the same frame of mind and the first, the second, and the third, and the fourth hitter. I need to hit the ball out of the ballpark. Hey, if you're hitting 220 and you got a 40 RBIs and you got a guy in third base, man, just hit a ground ball to second base. You're not going to hit the ball out of the ballpark.
Right. And sometimes you've got to, I was thinking there are some pitchers that would give me problems. And I'm going, okay, I have a tough time lifting the ball off a particular pitcher. Okay, well, I hate to do it. I hate to give up. I want to be 0 for 0 with a sac fly and a ribby. But if I have to go 0 for 1 with a ribby, and that's a point for my team, I've got to take what he's going to give me in this particular at bat. And that's what I'm talking about, having a thought process. There's some guys you come up with a runner on third, less than 2, and man, you love facing him, and you've got to get out of your mind. I'm going to take him deep. You just think, no, I got to get my job done first. Now that results in maybe getting to a good count. But all these things go into it. We could talk about this for days and days.